Hello everyone, welcome back to our PwC MiFID II channel. My name is Daniel Wiltert and I will present you today the product governance and target market requirements. I hope you enjoy.
Today, we will have a closer look at the product governance and target market requirements. It should be noted that target market is only a part of the overall product governance requirements. The product governance requirements are one of the major new rules of MiFID II. So, what are the major requirements of product governance? First, you have to distinguish between manufacturers and distributors of a financial instrument. Manufacturers will have to perform the product approval and review process. We will have a closer look on this process later. Nevertheless, let me highlight some of the major requirements of this process now. Within the product approval and review process, manufacturers have to specify for each of their product a target market. It is their obligation to assess all risk of this target market. Furthermore, they have to review all their products on a regular basis, considering product performance and events that may affect risk of target markets, consistency of product with target market needs, and the appropriateness of distribution strategy. The manufacturers also have to share the information and results of the product approval process with the distributors. Looking at the sales side, distributors will have to ensure that products and services offered must meet the needs of identified target markets. Their distribution strategy must be compatible with the target market. Moreover, it is their obligation to understand products offered and/or recommended and assess the compatibility of products with the client's needs. On this slide, we look at the product governance and target market requirements from a process view. We start with the view of a product manufacturer. Manufacturers will have to make information available for distributors and intermediaries. On the other way around, manufacturers will obtain information from distributors and intermediaries. The manufacturers will have to perform a product approval process. They share target market information as well as information about the distribution strategy with distributors. We look at this approval process later in detail. Furthermore, they have to perform a review process. They will have to look at the risk and return of products and the actual distribution versus target market and distribution strategy. To do so, manufacturers will obtain corresponding information from their distributors. Now, let's have a look on the product governance process from a distributor's perspective. Distributors will get information from the manufacturers about a specific financial instrument. They get the target market information and the information about the suggested or planned distribution strategy. Then, distributors will perform their product governance process. We will have a closer look on this later. And then, after they perform their product governance process, they will offer the product to their clients. The distributors will inform the client about their services, about costs and charges of the product, and they perform an appropriateness and suitability test. At the end of this process, they collect and transmit the distribution information from the relevant target market and share this information with the corresponding manufacturer. At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned the product approval and review process. Now, let's have a closer look on this process and let's see how the product approval part works for a manufacturer. First, manufacturers have to perform this process for financial instruments and for structured deposits. The product approval process consists of 6 steps. Analyze conflict of interests, consider if the product represents a threat, identify the target market, and on the next slide, conduct a scenario analysis, consider if the product meets all needs of the target market, and finally, analyze the charging structure. Analyze conflict of interests. The manufacturer determines whenever the product creates a situation where the client is adversely affected if he takes an exposure opposite to the one previously held by the firm itself, or that the firm wants to hold after the sale of the product. The manufacturer also has to consider if the product may represent a threat to the orderly functioning or stability of financial markets before deciding to proceed with its launch. In the next step, the manufacturer has to identify the target market. He has to specify the type of clients for whose needs, characteristics, objectives the product is compatible, and any group for whom the product is not compatible. He has to do this on a sufficient granular level for each financial instrument. After that, the manufacturer conducts a scenario analysis. He assesses the risks of poor investor outcomes for end clients and circumstances that might cause them to occur. In the next step, he considers if the product meets all needs of the target market. He looks at the consistency of product's risk and reward profile with the target market. And he checks if the product design is driven by features that benefit the client and not by a business model that is dependent on poor client outcomes. Finally, the manufacturer analyzes the charging structure of the product. He will check the compatibility of the costs and other charges with the target market. Especially, he has to check if return expectations are not being undermined by the charges. Please note, if a manufacturer concludes that one or more of the 6 steps cannot be answered or performed in an appropriate way, he should not create or manufacture the product. After we have seen what the requirements for manufacturers are, let's take a look at the distributors. First, distributors have to perform this process for financial instruments and structured deposits as well. The distributors have to perform a product, or better, distribution approval process. They take the information provided by the manufacturers and identify and assess the circumstances and needs of the clients that they intend to focus on to ensure that clients' interests are not compromised as a result of commercial or funding pressures. They identify the needs, characteristics, and objectives of the group of clients to whom they are going to offer the product or service, target market. They also identify any groups of investors for whom the product or service is not compatible. This is what we call a negative target market. please notice, if different firms work together to distribute a product or service, the final distributor in the chain is ultimately responsible to meet the product governance obligations. If a firm acts both as a manufacturer and a distributor, only one target market assessment is required. If a distributor sells a product issued by entities outside MiFID II scope, it is his obligation to determine the target market for the product, even if the target market was not defined by the manufacturer. After we have seen the product approval process of a manufacturer and the distributor, let's take a look at the product review obligations. We start with a review of product manufactured. The manufacturers have to periodically review and update the product governance arrangements. They have to perform this review also prior to any further issue or relaunch of the products. And if they are aware of events that could materially affect the potential risks to investors, they have to review if the product remains consistent with the needs, characteristics, and objectives of the identified target market, if the product is being distributed to the target market, and if it's reaching clients for whom the product is not compatible. On the distributor side, they have to perform a review of products and of the service they provide on a regular basis. They have to check whenever the product or service remains consistent with the needs, characteristics, and objectives of the identified target market, and whether the intended distribution strategy remains appropriate. Finally, I would like to talk a little bit about the target market definition. You've heard this term a few times during the presentation. Nevertheless, how can the target market be defined, and what are the criteria? In Germany, the current target market concept based on 6 criteria. The first is a client category. So for which clients, for example retail clients or professional clients, the product is designed for. The second is investment objectives. So what kind of clients' investment objects can be achieved with this product? This could be, for example, pension scheme or just investments. The next is investment horizon. How long should a customer want to invest his money at least to ensure that the product could meet his objectives? The next are the risk indicator and risk reward profile. These 2 criteria describes the risk of the financial instrument. This risk assessment will be performed according to PwC. The last one is financial loss bearing capacity of a customer. The combination of the various elements of the 6 target market criteria will define a target market for a single financial instrument. It is easy to imagine that a single financial instrument will meet the criteria of more than target market. So it could come to the situation that one financial instrument or product or service is suitable for a different number of target markets.
This was our brief overview about the product governance and target market requirements. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you want to learn more about this or other topics. Please also like and share this video if you like.